Are you winning? Do you need help in your life or business? Could you use some inspiration, business strategies, and success principles? I'm Daniel Gomez, award-winning business coach, keynote speaker, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you create a successful life and elevate your business. Together, we will discover the keys that unlock your success and dreams. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate you, we inspire you, and today we're going to educate you. I'll tell you what, I was blessed to share the stage with this amazing speaker. Really look up to him and just the work that he does. He's not one-dimensional, but he specializes in various areas that I love myself. And man, I'm honored to have you here, René Rodriguez. Welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, brother.
It's an honor to be here, my friend. I've heard such amazing things about you, and it was a great pleasure meeting you in Nashville as well. And I'm excited to be here.
Man, well, I know the amazing speaker you are, and I was really treated by one of the interviews. I heard one of your episodes you did with Jerry Minor. Introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, please, René.
So yeah, my name's René Rodriguez. My background's behavioral neuroscience, and for the last 30 years, I've been heavily up on the side of what we call applied science. And so there's research out there that sits on a shelf that's amazing. There's research out there that's in books and hidden in abstracts. And I was the guy that said, okay, what does this mean to selling? What does this mean to persuasion? What does it mean to body language, confidence, self-esteem, self-awareness? I mean, you name the personal development question, there's research out there for it. And unfortunately, it's not real attainable for some. And so me spending time applying it with businesses in real life scenarios, I've created a really fun methodology in terms of how do we take it and really focus on amplifying your influence. And influence would be stages, one-on-one, storytelling, a lot of things that you guys do too. And how do you really take it to grow influence? And we have a little different approach to a view of what influence is, but yeah, that's where my world is. And I wrote a book on it called Amplify Your Influence and spoke about 239 days last year. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, you use the word, right? Behavioral neuroscience. Why is behavioral neuroscience important? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs out there that they don't understand business, right? And I think when I go and I do a sales training somewhere, people don't like the words, right? They say, I don't want to be salesy.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the first question I want to ask you is, what is the behavioral neuroscience that you teach, and why is that important to sales?
Well, 30 years ago, my mother asked me a question. She said, René, what does everybody here have in common? And I couldn't figure out the room. I was looking at, culture to skin color to gender. And I was like, I couldn't figure it out. And she said, they all have a brain. And if you can understand how the brain works, life becomes easier. And I didn't realize just how profound that was until I started studying it and realizing that in essence, we all function the same. If we're under stress, there's certain things that happen. If we feel threatened, there's certain things that happen. And then when you boil those things down, those things come down to really our understanding of stress and cortisol and how our brain perceives it. And then you realize that people have different perceptions of stress. Some people can jump out of an airplane and feel fine and stand on an edge and not feel scared looking over, while the rest of us, like me included, have massively scared of heights. And so it's all of our perception and how we deal with it. Now, when it comes to selling or a stage, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. If I'm trying to manage a business, and most business management strategy really requires change. Anytime you do goal setting, that requires change. But yet 70% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned by February 1st. 9 out of 10 companies fail to execute on strategy. So there's a need to understand what it is about the decision-making process of how I expend my resources, energy, time, and money to really determine the outputs and the results that I get. And so if I can understand that basic foundational decision-making process and the unconscious processes that are happening, that's the scary part, is the unconscious, the decisions that we're making that we're not even aware that we're making, and the resistance points that we're not even aware that we're resisting. If I can understand those, I can dissect and design communications, presentations, rollout strategies in a very different way to work with the brain versus against it.
I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a part of the show where I say, get out your pen, get out your paper, because René's going to drop some massive wisdom throughout the show. And you know what we say here at the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, what you write down you retain over 50% of it in your subconscious mind. So go back, take notes, listen to this episode again, because remember, you're not here just to watch. You're here to learn and grow. Renee, you said something that was amazing that I loved. Like, what are two things or two strategies that approaches to say when you're doing your sales training with behavioral science? Like, what are the two most common problems that you see with young business owners kind of embracing and having problems with trouble with sales that you help them overcome?
It's a great question. It's the way that we perceive it, sales is really going to determine our level of conviction and whether we'll engage in sales activities. And if you engage in sales activities, you're going to get sales results. But if you don't engage in sales activities, you're not going to get the results. Then we got to look at what's the belief system behind the activity and the behavior. And unfortunately, salespeople uh, have gotten a bad rap over the last 100 years. And the reason is because sales is a great place to practice science and psychology, like persuasion techniques. And when you realize that you can shift the sequence of how you say something and you get a dramatically different result, or if you say this first, then that, if you do this, then that, and you get a 10x result, you realize that that's power.
Mm.
Now, power in the wrong hands without an ethical foundation can be abused. And so you get the snake oil salesman, the used car salesman. Not all used car salesmen, by the way, but those are the stigmas that we get. And the snake oil one was, people saying I could tell this story, get an emotional response from people, ask for money, and they'll buy, and I disappear. And so there's this fear that people have about being manipulated into something. And so if my parents had that fear, or if I saw it on TV or picked up from it just in the general cultural zeitgeist that we're in, I might bring that into that world and say, I don't want to be a salesperson. And really what they're saying is, I don't want to be pushy and sell something that people don't need. Well, okay, let's pretend, Daniel, that I have a cure for cancer. And I took a class online and I'm okay. I'm okay. I took a class online, but I have this test. And Daniel, I think you might have that cancer. I just took this online course off YouTube, and the test to see if you have this cancer is $10,000. Would you buy it from me? Honestly, would you buy it from me? I just took a class on YouTube. It's $10,000. That's my presentation.
Probably not.
Probably not, right? And you'd be like, yeah, why don't you go get some experience first? I'm fine. I just had my doctors. We got my blood work. We're good. And I'm like, okay, you're right. And then 6 months later, you find out that you have this cancer and you come back to me, you're like, Renee, holy wow, you were right. I need that cure. And I have to say, I'm sorry, Daniel, we would have had to done it 6 months ago. It's too far down the path. How are you feeling about me at this point?
Probably.
Why didn't you push me harder, Renee? And so then we realize at that point where we go, okay, if I truly have a cure for something, I say cure to cancer, that's an extreme example, but I might have the cure for self-esteem. I might have the cure for growing your sales. I might have the cure for making you healthier, to having a better relationship, to being a better leader, better manager, being better on stages, closing at a higher percentage. And if I truly have this cure, this solution, then it's an obligation that I have to find the best way of communicating that value to someone.
Mm.
And if I haven't been able to communicate the value, like, you should be so upset with me that I didn't have the methodology and the scripting and the confidence to save your life.
I love this. I love what we're talking about, right? And I love that because it is our obligation. I mean, I truly believe, I tell people and I tell our team, right? Like, we have the solution for people. They have a problem. And when we are able to solve that, it's like that's where it is, right? Because I truly believe that right, there's people in the morning saying, God, I need help. And God says, you know what? Go see Renee, go see Daniel, because we have the solution for them. And so let me ask you this. What is a wrong approach and what is a right approach, right? What is something, a common mistake that you hear young sales professionals or entrepreneurs, right? Because I think for me, the biggest adjustment for me is when I was running an automotive dealership, right? Everybody came to us, right? I mean, you needed a car or it was a special occasion, so it was easier. You weren't out there, say, looking for business. It was more consumer to business to us. And when I became an entrepreneur, it's like now I'm going B2B, right? I'm knocking on doors, and it was a totally different approach. And I
Yeah.
think I made some mistakes, some huge mistakes, right? But I had to learn how to adjust my approach. What's one mistake that you see that's wrong out there in entrepreneurship world that you say, okay, you're doing it A, but you need to do it B. Can you give us an example of that?
Sure. So let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
What's the best golf club to use
The
when
best,
playing golf?
the putter. I like the putter.
Okay, you like the putter. What if you're teeing off on a 500-yard hole?
Yeah,
How good is the putter going to be for you?
not good at all.
So what's the best golf club to use?
The one that you need at that moment.
There you go. And so most people will go to their favorite tool in the bag. So, but you would never grab your tool and then assess the situation. You assess the situation and then you go to your bag of tools. And so the sales skills that you teach, that I teach, and that we all talk about are a set of tools. And they go into this tool bag of, over the years, we start developing this toolbox and this sort of repository of skill sets. And what I tell people is very rarely that the tool is wrong, or excuse me, it's very rarely that your approach is wrong. It's that you've chosen the wrong tool for the job. And so people say you should never have your hands in your pockets. Well, I can tell you 10 scenarios where hands in the pockets are the right thing to do, but it's not the one that you want to start a keynote off with 5,000 people and your hands in your pockets. I can tell you that, people say you shouldn't do X. Well, it's not about that. It's stop thinking about the tool. Where's your audience? How are they feeling? Where are they at? Do they even know who you are? Do they know about the product? Has the need been identified? Has the cost of not doing this been identified? There's so many things that need to happen before you offer a solution. For example, I'll give you my favorite example. Before I go, Daniel, do you want a Band-Aid?
No.
No. Kind of a weird question, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't need one right now.
Yeah. But if I were to then say, changing the sequence, Daniel, you're bleeding from the ear. Would you like a Band-Aid?
Of course. I didn't
So
even know
now,
I didn't even know I was bleeding.
yeah. So now what happened? The first one is I offered a solution without a problem defined. And if I offer solutions without problem defined, it's felt as intrusive, weird, and awkward. But if I define a problem first, now the same solution is welcomed and saying, thank God you showed up. I would have stained my shirt. And so too often, when people do this on social media, they start offering solutions without identifying what the problem is. And so, a good litmus test for, let's say, a social media post is take your hook, I mean, the first 3 seconds, and walk up to a random person on the street that doesn't know you, maybe somebody who's eating lunch with their family, and walk up to them, say, hey, it's Tax Tuesday. I want to talk to you about a 1031 exchange. They'd look at you like, who the hell are you? Get out of here.
Yeah.
But if I were to walk up to you and say, hey, you want me to show you how the rich avoid paying taxes? And don't worry, you don't have to be rich to take advantage of this. And it's perfectly legal. You'd be like, okay, tell me more.
Yes.
And then if I were to then go into the problem, say, what most people do when they sell their home is they put that money that they made from the house in the bank. Well, that causes a taxable event. Here's what the rich do. There's this thing called the 1031 exchange. And now at the end of that, the solution comes in, but I've caught your attention. I've identified the problem. Then I've also overcome your objection by saying, don't worry, you don't have to be rich and it is legal. And then I offer the solution. So there's a sequence to that. Now that's a sequence for online social media short form posts. You and I talk about captive audiences. Like social media is not a captive audience. So you get that 3 seconds to stop that scroll. No different than back in the day with newspapers and magazines. You had to stop the stroll. People strolling on by. What is it? Aliens attack New York? What? And then they read it. That was the
I
stopping.
thought of the National Enquirer when you said that.
Yeah. And so it's the same thing, unfortunately, but and the same thing, the National Enquirer would be another abuse of that skill set. But people that offer really good value also capture our attention really quickly. And so a couple different answers to that. One is we got to identify the problem before we ever offer a solution. For sure. We have to cover the objection before they do, which requires a massive amount of empathy. I'm about to offer this. How are they feeling? Well, they're probably going to think that this, and that. Okay, how about I cover that before I continue with a solution?
So, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself this question. When have you gone up to the tee box? When have you gone into a presentation and you just had the wrong tool? You had the wrong tool, you had the wrong approach. And think about what Renee's saying. It's we have a toolbox of sales. We have different techniques, and the thing is this: you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that they're not bad. Like people need our help, but if you go in there with lack of confidence and then you're nervous and you grab the wrong tool, you've already lost. And you know what comes to mind, Renee, as we're talking about this, is that it amazes me when people just throw up information, and I'm like, well, you're throwing up information, you don't even know what problem solving. And I love what you just
Um,
said. So, ladies and gentlemen, write that down. Number one thing I think you need to take down what Renee just said. If you're an entrepreneur and in sales, what identifies a problem? I think so many people start throwing up, hey, you know what? I got this, I got that. And you're like, okay, but it doesn't even pertain to my problem. And I think that that's key. What you said is identify the problem, Renee.
yeah, and I think the other piece too, and I love how you articulated that, is the underlying piece that we don't talk about is when a salesperson who's massively talented, like a lot of the people I'm sure listening right now, use the wrong tool, get a poor result, and they go, the sad part is some might go, you know what, I suck at this. I'm just not meant for this. Or they go, you know what, this doesn't work. Instead of them going, well, maybe it was the wrong tool. Maybe I do have the skill set. Maybe I do have the heart for this. I just used the wrong tool, the wrong strategy. And so it was a great example that I've always used, which is, okay, if I were to give you a raw potato in your hand, right, and then a cup of straws, and your strategy, your objective is to take a straw and stab it with the potato, right? So you got to hold the potato, stab it. And then you take the first straw and you stab, and the straw breaks. And we got a whole cup. I said, keep going. Boom, stab, break, stab, break, stab, break. After about 5, maybe 10, depending on how stubborn you are, you might say, okay, this strategy sucks. And what do most people do with a strategy that doesn't work? They throw it out. And so I go, okay, I grab one straw, grab the potato, and I take my thumb and I move it like this to cover the top hole of the straw, which in that case traps the air inside as I thrust down into it, and it stabs and it holds. So the movement shift was from one thumb a quarter inch to the right to cover a hole. I didn't throw the whole strategy out. I just got better. And so that's the role of what a coach can do, a manager, a podcast like this, is to maybe say, hold on, I don't need to throw everything out. Maybe I just need to make a minor adjustment.
I love what you know. We just had our group coaching call last night, and I said this: don't fall into the lie of trying harder. Sometimes trying harder makes things worse. And exactly what you just said, you can try harder and harder to stab that potato, but try differently is what I told him.
Yeah.
Instead of trying harder, try differently. And you just
Yeah.
try differently because you moved your finger over 3/4 of an inch. You covered the back of the straw. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about that. Where are you trying hard and now you're frustrated, you're exhausted? Like Renee said, you feel like giving up and you're like, this doesn't work. You know what? Maybe this entrepreneurship isn't for me. Maybe sales isn't for me. Maybe what I'm trying, my dream isn't worth it. No, like I think what breaks my heart, Renee, honestly, is that people don't realize how close to success they are. And I can remember when I was trying to figure out speaking, right? I had some raw talent, but I stunk, right? I remember a friend of mine saying, Daniel, I wouldn't hire you after seeing that YouTube video. I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't hire myself, but I knew that I was a work in progress. But
Yeah.
meantime, I just put a sales training together and I went out and knocked on doors. But I remember I was in a bathroom crying and I was like, you know what? I'm killing myself. I could be earning 200,000 right now because that's what in the automotive industry. And I just remember I looked in the mirror and my son called me and he gave me a pep talk and it kept me going. And I look back now, if I would have given up
Yeah.
5.5 years ago, almost 6 years ago in that bathroom, I wouldn't be here with you. And half of the products and services that we offer now, they came on.
Isn't it funny the power of somebody believing in you?
Yeah.
It's such a gift, and sometimes it comes from the most unlikely places, like our children. My son did that to me in a different scenario, and I was about to get into some trouble. Somebody did something wrong and was threatening a friend of mine, and I was going to equalize the situation in a non so friendly way. And um, I was literally about to get in a fight, and I took my watch off and handed it to my kid, and I said, "Get in the car and stay in the car." I was just going to handle the situation. He grabbed my hand. He goes, "Dad, he's not worth it." And he just looked at me. Now imagine the possible outcomes. It could have happened of me knocking somebody out in the middle of a parking lot. What if he hit his head, go into a coma? What if he would have died? What if he was better than me? What if he had a knife? What if he had a friend? And just those, but to your point, like those people stepping in, those outside sources, when we allow them to influence our life in a positive way, it changes the entire trajectory. I mean, look, your son 5 years ago just a nudge of belief and hope and love and care pushed you to where you are today, to this conversation we're having right now. So I always say, okay, well, what kind of nudge do we need today? And are we around the right people that are going to care enough to be unreasonable with us?
When I'm glad, wow, okay. Let me ask you this. When does Rene Rodriguez know when he's outgrown a relationship or a friendship or a situation? I think I was with Eric Thomas. We were in Dallas, and he said something that really kind of helped me in that season because I realized that people that support you in the beginning of your journey, they don't support you sometimes when you reach a certain level. And this is what Eric Thomas said is that you're gonna outgrow some people, Daniel, but you're never gonna outgrow your people that are meant to be with you. And you're
Mm,
gonna lose some people, but you're not gonna lose your people.
yeah, I love that. I mean, to me, one, I've come to the agreement with myself or whatever it is, come to the realization or come to the acceptance is probably the better word, that some people will come with me and some people won't. In fact, most won't. And when I say come with me, I don't mean that I'm going in a better direction. I'm going in my direction. And I don't believe in the I'm better, I'm raising up and you're not. That's an ego thing. There's certain directions that we all choose. They're just different. And for me, some people will come, but the ones that I can, if there's some people that don't come with me, but are massive cheerleaders. I want them in my life. And there's some people that are coming with me, but for the wrong reasons. I don't want them in my life. And then, but to me, the real simple litmus test is, can I share my biggest successes with you? Can I share them with you without feeling like I'm bragging? Like, I got a cover of a magazine, and some people are like, oh, that's cool. Or like, oh my God, Renee, dude, you've been working so hard for the last 30 years. How does that feel? Dude, that's awesome. And it takes a special kind of person to celebrate your wins, that I don't have to dumb myself down so that you don't feel bad about yourself. That to me is the ultimate litmus test. Now, when I've identified that person will never know, by the way. I don't make it dramatic. They just get less of my time. I can still love them. They can still be part of my world in some way, shape, or form, but just not as much as they used to be. And there are people that are just less in my life that will never know. Just, just, I have to manage that algorithm. I have to manage that average of the people that I spend time with.
Are you an aspiring speaker? Do you have a book that you've been wanting to write for months, maybe even years? Or are you an aspiring podcaster? You want to start that podcast like the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show and don't know where to start? Well, at Daniel Gomez Enterprises, we can help you do all three. We can help you become that paid speaker, share your story to the world, write your book, and get your podcast launched and help you produce it. We'd love to help you. Give us a call at 210-663-5954. That's 210-663-5954. We can help you become that paid speaker, write that book, and launch your podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call now.
I think people don't realize we only have so much focus in a day, right? We only have so much energy that we can give out. And if you're using it in the wrong situations, the wrong conversations with the wrong people, and they're not supporting you, I think back what Coach Burt says, right? Go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And I think it's wise what you said, right? Like I think so many times we try to, especially now with social media, and this is something that I think that God's worked on my heart this year, is right, just don't be so emotional reactive. I remember when I would post something on LinkedIn like 3 or 4 years ago, and you want to respond to it, and it's like, you know what? Just delete the comment or don't even respond to it. You don't have to be emotionally reactive to it. And I think so many times people get caught up in that, and I'm like, you know what? I've
Why
learned.
give it the energy?
Yeah, exactly.
Someone just told me that the best gift I can give my wife is emotional self-regulation, to be emotionally self-regulated. If I can regulate my emotions, the best gift I can give the people in my life. Because if I am not emotionally regulated, that is the way to destroy a life. Trust me.
And I think it's without say that terminology, emotional what?
Regulation.
I think
If I
that's
can be emotionally regulated, meaning it's basically what you just said, which is if I'm emotional and I respond and I get upset and I run to my keyboard, or somebody says something, I fly off the handle, or somebody feels like they offend me and I get upset and I slash back. That's deregulation, dysregulation, deregulation, unregulated, whatever term you want to use. But if I can have the worst of the worst happen to me and go, interesting, and just regulate the emotions, sit back and just think, that is a gift, because we are messy as humans. Me too. All of us. We're messy. Anybody that purports or tries to come off as being perfect will lie to you about other things as well. In fact, the least of human qualities is perfection. The old quote says, to err is to be human. It is why we relate. And when you see somebody who's perfect, we call them something not human. We say they're a robot. They don't make any mistakes. And it's like, we know immediately that if you're perfect, you're not human. And so, but this social media world where we get to choose the highlight reel, and then we get to monetize that highlight reel, but we forget the humanity behind it. And so if I can be self-regulated in a messy world, it is such a gift and a rarity.
I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, write that down. Am I self-regulated? Are you an emotional roller coaster, or are you maybe right now your life, maybe your business isn't where you want it to be because you're everywhere. And it's not the fact that you need maybe more business savvy, but maybe you just really need to work on the inside of you. You need to mature. You need to mature your character. You need to mature and control your emotions, because if you don't have that part in your soft skills as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, as a coach, whatever your realm is, it's going to hurt you. And I think for me, it's like I've been doing a lot more inside work on me, Renee, and I'm bragging on myself right now, right? Because I was challenged by a friend of mine. She goes, 'cause we were just talking about some stuff here in November, and I said we didn't hit the revenue I wanted, but it's okay. We had a good year. And she goes, well, I can tell you're kind of a little bit frustrated. I go, no, I just, I have this goal. And she goes, I just feel this in my heart, and I'm going to tell you, and you do what you want with it. She goes, I feel like God is saying, give him 6 months sober and see look at what the miracles he's going to do in your life and business. And I don't drink a lot, but I like to have a glass of wine. And sometimes I guess maybe after a long day, I can have 1 or 2 glasses, and it's not the right way to cope. And when she told me that, this is what I told myself. And I said, man, I'm the problem. Like, I'm waiting on God. So I'm thinking, but the problem is I don't want to change. And have felt this in my heart. And she wasn't the first person that told me something like that. And I said, okay,
what a good friend.
yeah. And I was upset at myself first, but then I got disappointed. So you know what? Am I going to really allow my next level of success in business not happen because I'm choosing to? And I'm in Texas, right? I live in San Antonio. Every corner you go to, there's this Mexican restaurant, and we have margaritas, and it becomes a habit, right? You just like ordering a Coke. It's a Coke here. And I said, you know what? And I just asked God to take it away. But the amazing thing is we just had our Millionaire Mind Boot Camp in November, and we usually have a mixer. And I was like, it was a big test for me. And my friend goes, dude, just carry a glass of soda or water or whatever. Just have something in your hand mentally, and it'll help you. Well, make a long story short, Renee, they didn't have a drink all event long, 3 days in a row. We just had Thanksgiving. They didn't have a glass of wine with just afterwards. And I was like, it's amazing how once you see that you don't need it to have a really good time. I'll tell my wife, like, why didn't I do this before? And it's been a month now, but I'm celebrating myself because I truly believe what you talk about, you bring about.
Good for you.
So I'm saying, right, it's I had to change, and I love what we're talking about, because so many times people don't realize, like, if you really want to change your life, you need to change. It's the skill set helps what we're talking about, but really it's the emotional. Can you control and discipline yourself emotionally also?
And that self-regulation you're talking about too. And by the way, as somebody who struggles with it with the food, and I used to be 106 pounds of fat heavier. You can see my old videos. That was the same thing. It was like food was celebration. And if you felt good, you ate. If you felt bad, you ate. If you were bored, you ate. And you just, this old programming as we are as a kid, being Cuban, and, food equaled love and all that BS, reprogramming all that stuff. It is emotional self-regulation. Procrastination isn't a time management issue. It's a self-regulation issue. We want immediate reward, and we want to avoid the stress of actually planning. And so that becomes a perpetuating cycle. You have a thing you need to do, a task in front of you. And if you do it, it's stressful. But if you put it off, it's a relief. That's dopamine. And then you go, wow, putting it off feels good. Putting it off feels good. Putting it off feels good. And then you get the last minute and somehow you pull it off. That's another reward, saying, wow, putting it off rewards you. And so another self-regulation challenge there. But the other piece too, I want to ask you on this question: how much have you changed, even the people that you spend time with, to be with people that drink less?
I never asked myself that question, but I think like this weekend that just passed, like I was happy, just me and my wife. We did nothing, right? We had the event, Thanksgiving, and I said, like, let's just go to the lake house. And it was just me and her. And the thing is, my wife had some tests done because, right, we turned 51 and she hadn't drank in a month. And I'm like, hey, well, come on, have a glass of wine with me. But she's like, no, I'm good. I got to run this test. So it kind of worked out where it's like,
She made the choice too. You're surrounded by somebody that's on the same path.
yes.
Yeah. So think about this. Like for me, I never was a big drinker, but I would be okay drinking at events. And over, I think it was like almost, geez, must be close to 15 years ago, when I stopped drinking at events, because poor decisions, even if I was with the CEO, my client, and one night he bought tequila shots at 2 a.m. in Vegas. And I'm like, well, I'm with the CEO. We got our event tomorrow. As long as he's here, I'm good. Well, I woke up a half hour late from our event, and 80 some managers were in the room waiting for me, not happy. I was like, the last time I ever do that. And what's crazy is that you get into those environments then, and people wonder why I don't go to dinners after when I do events, why I don't go out to the clubs or the happy hours and things like that. It's like, I don't need, I don't enjoy being somebody around people who are drinking. I just don't enjoy it. It's not fun. And I have other things I have to do. And so it does shift the people that you hang out with. It does. It's just one of those things. It's hard to be sober hanging around people that are there. And it's hard to be in shape hanging around with people that are out of shape. It's hard to be wealthy hanging around only people that don't have money. And so it's hard. And so if you are out of shape, surround yourself with people who are in shape. If you want to make more money, get in the right rooms. My buddy literally just got off the phone with him. He sold his company for $10 million and it's life-changing for him. And he went to the company that bought him and also 6 others. And he's sitting next to a guy. He's like, man, I'm the man. I just sold my company. I exited, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, what'd you exit for? He goes, 132 million. He goes, oh boy, I'm in the right room. He's like, nothing now. It's still 10 million is a lot of money. But he's like, it's not 132 million. And he's like, okay, I said, you're in the right room now. He goes, that's the first thought I had, was like, I went from the top dog to no one. I was the lowest. And I'm like, and guess what's going to happen in a couple of years, man? It's inevitable. It's the science. Get in the right rooms, surround yourself with the right people. They will get you thinking differently. And if you think differently, you'll behave differently. And when you behave differently, magically you get different results.
So what do you have to say? I love where we're going with this. Is in my book, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind, I talk about you belong with the elite. There's so many people that they'll go to an event like a Rene Rodriguez event, or they'll go to an event that's the Millionaire Mind Bootcamp, but their old self, they don't feel like they belong. What do you say to that person that doesn't feel like they walk in for the first time and, oh, it's not for me. Well, no, you didn't give yourself a chance because it's a higher frequency. Like your friend, hey man, you're surrounded by somebody that you sold somebody 132 million. Don't be, you belong there. It's okay. But so many people that I meet sometimes, Renee, they have a sense of not belonging. Talk
Yeah.
to me about that.
Well, we can go really deep on that, or I'm going to try to keep it simple. There's lots of things about not belonging. We can go into the psychological needs as a child, where we need to feel loved and like we belong into something. If somebody's not there, then, and if we don't feel like we belong in it, or as an early kid, as a child, then we spend the rest of our lives trying to prove ourselves that we belong. People pleasing, opting in, doing things, and constantly feeling behind the 8 ball. So let's move past that. If you feel you don't belong, even in the words we use, feel, it's a feeling. It's a feeling. I don't feel like I belong, which really probably means you feel uncomfortable. You might feel awkward and you have stress. And then you start questioning yourself and comparing to try to justify this, right? Well, they have more money than me. They're smarter than me. They're better dressed than me. They have X, Y, and Z. They're from this town. I'm not, whatever. And then we go, okay, I want you to think about it from this perspective. The big term that everybody uses right now is imposter syndrome. Okay, fair enough. Here's my take on imposter syndrome. And for those of you that feel it, I want you to let this resonate. First and foremost, you're not new for having it. You're not special for feeling imposter syndrome. And the reason why I say you're not special is that too many of us use imposter syndrome as an identity. Well, I have imposter syndrome. Well, it's like you have cancer. Like, well, I have cancer. It's like, stop saying that. Number one. No, I might feel uncomfortable in here today. That's a different phrase. Okay, I can deal with that. You having some affliction that is just made up, I can't solve that. So let's dissect what imposter syndrome is. It's a little bit of stress. And all it means is that you have leveled up in one status of your life. And at first, it's uncomfortable and awkward because maybe you don't know exactly what it's be like. When I wrote my book, I was like, I'm not an author. I can't even say I'm an author. Like, I'm uncomfortable. Imposter syndrome. Okay, now I'm a best-selling author. What? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to be on stage. What? Oh, I don't know. And so, there's a phrase that I use. We all want growth. Yes, most people will say, I want to grow. Well, there's a requirement for growth, and that's awkwardness. Awkwardness is a requirement for growth. Failure is a requirement for growth. And so I have now associated awkwardness with growing. Imposter syndrome means I've leveled up. That's a good thing. You should level up. So you should seek that feeling every day. Why not I want to feel awkward. I want to feel like I don't belong in the room. I want to be the smallest fish in the pond because that means I'm going to get better. And then when you go, okay, what do I do when that feeling is so overwhelming? And that's what most people don't teach. Here's what I do. I pull out a pad of paper and a pen. I stay silent and I take notes from the people who have figured it out, quote unquote. And you know what I realized in about 2 weeks? They don't really know what they're doing either. and there's a reason why I'm there. And I go, interesting. I don't judge them, but I go, now I know why I'm here. If you're frustrated between how something's going down, that's why you're there, to fix that frustration. If you don't agree with the direction, well, that's why you're there, to change the direction. Do you have the skill to change the direction? Have you been to Daniel Gomez's class on how to speak and to persuade? Well, maybe I don't know. I'll give you an example. We just did we did a course, Designing Your Best Year Ever. I've been doing this business for 30 years. And everyone's saying, René, you got to start doing webinars and we got to put them into a funnel and close them. I am one of the best salespeople on the planet. I will put myself against anybody. I suck at pitching from stage. And I suck. I mean, it is painful to watch me do that. And we were just on the phone literally right before our call. I'm like, René, you literally we got 850 registrations with $150 of ad spend, which meant most of them came organically. And you had people on there the entire time, but not many people bought. He goes, your pitch? I go, yeah, I know. I go, I don't like moving from the content expert where I'm really showing you how to design your best year and then say, hey, for this, you can buy. The point being of this, I go, I know I'm not good at that. So I have to get good at it. And I said, who are the best people at this? They gave me a list of a few people. Guess what I'm doing? Studying their pitches and how they do it. I even have a book back. Like it's where is it called? It says, did I move it already? It's Daniel, what's his name? Dan Kennedy's book. Dan Kennedy's book, right? I forget what it's the one. And I read that book. And I'm in the process of, because I don't like that feeling. And that's just okay to acknowledge it. Now I got to take a pad of paper and a pen and I got to start studying. Period. Maybe sticker shock is what's going to help me. You know what I mean? Like who knows what it is? Maybe that's why you say to God, maybe that's why God put us on this podcast here today. The point being, none of us are immune to needing to continue to learn. None of us are immune to the feeling of awkwardness. You can perceive me in any way, shape, or form you want. It doesn't mean that I'm not human.
You know, I think I want our audience to hear this. And ladies and gentlemen, René Rodriguez he's world renowned, right? He's known. He's an expert in what he does. He's really, really good. And I want to acknowledge you and honor you for just being vulnerable, because I think a lot of people, they wouldn't say what you just said. And I want to honor you for that, because you're being real. And that's
Thanks,
that's why I was gravitated to you at Activate, because I just felt your heart, right? I just like, man, like this guy's, you can tell, right? After you speak on so many stages and you see people, like you can kind of tell who's real, who's not. And ladies and gentlemen, René's real. And I'm sharing that with you because where are you not being vulnerable in your business? Where are you not being authentic with what you're doing. Maybe you're doing your business for the wrong reason. Maybe you're doing it for the money. And of course we need to make a profit. I preach that all day. I talk about that all day. But if you don't believe in what you do, well, then maybe you need to go and find a product or service that you believe in. And
Mhm.
and I think I hear that so many times, Renee, where they're not in alignment with, right. If you don't believe in the product or service you're selling, you're not going to sell it. And I love what I do because I love helping people. And what I heard you just say is right. Maybe you need help, ladies and gentlemen. And like Renee just said, I'm going to go get help. And he's successful. I mean, some of us, we ain't even successful and we're not even asking for help.
It's successful compared to who? I know some people that I am nobody next to. And that's the beauty of it. And like, what is success? You know, I came home I haven't scrolled social media in 6 months. And the reason is I came home one day after a 5-day trip and my kids didn't run to the door and my wife wasn't at the door waiting. And I'm like, I come in, I'm like, hello, guys, I just got home. And they're like, oh, hey, all right, kids, get in the car. I'm like, car? I just got home. Like, yeah, we have baseball. Life goes on when you're traveling. It's like, interesting. I made massive changes that moment. I was like, I cannot travel this much. I have to be more present with my family. Social media takes up way too much time. I'm going to have a team that tells me when something's important instead of me thinking everything's important. I'm going to decide my attention instead of somebody with a good hook deciding what I pay attention to. I'm going to be proactive instead of reactive. And it is a struggle. It's not easy, but you have to take a look at those things. So what does success mean? Well, I know people that make half as much as I do and they got everybody waiting at the door. So depends on what it is. I mean, you can perceive us any way you want. I know I got stuff I can share, but don't ever think someone's perfect. And especially in a world of the gurus and all these people that portray and sit in front of fake cars and jets. It's like, oh my gosh, stop. Stop it.
No, I mean, you're right. For me, I think I this past year when we got our corporate office, I didn't want it, Renee, but I really felt it was God tugging at me, and we had a good year this year, even though it wasn't the year I wanted as far as revenue. But I think that one thing that I learned is exactly what you're saying. Something that's helped me is God, family, then business, because the car dealership I used to work at, very successful gentleman. I love him. He's like a father, but really he kind of lost his family along the way in obtaining this dealership. And that's not success, right? Like I think in the Bible scriptures it says, "What good is it gain a person to gain the whole world and lose themselves?"
They'll lose themselves.
And I think that's what you're saying. You know, in saying this, you kind of shared your story. How did you go about with Amplify, right? Because I think people need to understand that there's power in sharing your story. There's power in speaking. One of our amazing clients who just went to your class loved it. Why is speaking important? If somebody's listening to this and they're an entrepreneur, they're in sales, like why is speaking and story setting something that's a must for them?
Well, how am I gonna transfer an idea from me to you? So let's even break it down even further. Let's take away influence and the ability to communicate. You walk in a room and no one notices. You tell a joke and no one buys. You sell a product and no one cares. You share an idea. You sell a product, no one buys. You share an idea, no one cares. You cast a vision and no one follows. How are you feeling?
Little.
Little. And I might say another way of saying that is insignificant.
Yeah.
And so we go, okay, let's play out the word insignificant. I feel insignificant. I'm in a meeting and I feel insignificant. The question would be, well, why am I in this meeting? If I'm in a relationship and I feel insignificant, I might say, why am I in this relationship? If I'm at work and I feel insignificant, I might say, why do I work here? Now, unfortunately, too many people walk around life feeling insignificant, asking why they're here. So if I lack significance, the first question is, what is my purpose then? And so influence and purpose are hand in hand. So now bring influence back, because you asked how important this is. I walk in a room, people take notice. I tell a joke, people laugh. I sell a product, they buy. I share an idea, they love it. I cast a vision and I watch people line up and follow. How am I feeling now? Significant. And I'm in a meeting and I feel significant. I know why I'm there. I'm in a relationship and I feel significant. I know exactly why I'm in here. I'm at work and I feel significant. I know why I work here. No, I won't work for you for a little bit more money. I belong here. I cast a vision, people follow. There's no better feeling than influence because it helps you create clarity of purpose. And without it, I believe it's the lack of influence. It's truly one of the worst of human experiences. And so you want to understand why you're here. You want to bring ideas to the world. You want a better quality of life. And we learn how to communicate who we are to the world. And if the world responds, we know why we're here.
I love it, man. As we're getting ready to land this ship, we'll just say because we have some business owners here. We'll just say we're an entrepreneur. We've been in business for a year. We're struggling in revenue. We're struggling in sales. What would be the advice that you would give this person they just can't get it together after a year and they're thinking about giving up?
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me at 18 years old. I thought I was going to play basketball my whole life. And I got cut from my college basketball team my sophomore year. And the moment that I got cut, I had a chance to talk to a CEO. And I said, what's the one thing that I need to be in your shoes, I need to do now to be in your shoes when I get older? And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, you learn how to sell. If you learn how to sell, you will always be employed. And so the things that you're teaching are the skill sets that will keep you employable for the rest of your life. And you're the business owner. I can't tell you, many problems can't be solved with revenue. Most problems are solved with revenue. Now, that doesn't mean it solves all the problems, but it's a hell of a lot easier to approach the other problems when you have money. And so learn how to sell, period.
I love it, man. What is a scripture or a quote that René relies on in times of adversity? A scripture or a quote that he relies on in times of adversity?
Amelia Earhart. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. Those that know it not, they know no release from little things. They know not the livid loneliness of fear, nor mountain heights where bitter joy can hear the sound of wings. So if I break that down, if you want peace in your life, life says there's a price to it. It's courage. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. You want peace? Show me courage. Those that show no courage, they know no release from the little things. They don't know what loneliness feels like, the livid loneliness of fear, nor the other extreme of mountain heights where bitter joy can hear the sound of wings. And so for me, if I read it now with that understanding, courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. Those that know it not, they know no release from little things. They know not the livid loneliness of fear, nor mountain heights where bitter joy can hear the sound of wings. If you show no courage, you will be stuck in the small steps of life. And if you show courage, you might fail miserably, or you might win bigger than you ever thought.
Boom, baby. Wow. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. And René, you just threw some great wisdom, brother. How does somebody get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
Definitely follow me on Instagram, Learn with René. It's Rene. I do a video a day, no pitch, obviously, because I suck at it. So it's all micro learning. And follow me on Instagram, my website, meetrene.com. Everything's Learn with René. So YouTube, TikTok, we got over 1 million followers on TikTok, over a couple 100,000 on Instagram. So and what's crazy? What's growing the fastest right now? We're getting almost 2 million impressions a week on LinkedIn. It's just wild.
Nice. Congratulations. Yeah.
So do video on LinkedIn. There's your tip. They're just catching up.
Well, thank you for joining us, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with us on this week's episode with René Rodriguez. Thank you for making us one of the top podcasts worldwide in 0.5%. Without you, we wouldn't have done it. And we were talking about influence selling. We want to see you in March here in San Antonio, Texas, March 21st, 22nd, 2025. You see it right behind me, the Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, where the world needs to hear your story. And that's how you grow your business. Thank you once again for making us one of the top podcasts. We'll see you next week here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show with another amazing guest. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
This is Daniel Gomez Inspires, and thank you for listening to our show today. Please share this episode with a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe to our show. And for listening to our show today, I want to give you a free gift. I want to invite you to our Millionaire Mind community. Text the word millionaire, that's millionaire, to
210-942-5059. Yes, join our community today and receive millionaire affirmations, inspirational quotes on a weekly basis. That's 210-942-5059. Text the word millionaire today and join our community. And once again, thank you for listening to our show.